Well, good morning, listeners. It's morning here in the US, but I'm speaking with Rusanda Panfili, and she is a violinist and a composer. I actually was introduced to her work by going to a Hans Zimmer concert several weeks ago, and I loved how she played the violin. It was with a lot of feeling and passion. And I was like, I really would love to get to know her story and get to know more about her. And she just was telling me before we started this recording that she actually composed music for a Austrian film that has been released, and her and her husband worked on it together. She has a single coming out next week at the time of this recording, as well as an album coming out later as well. So she's very busy. She has toured with Andrea Bocelli as well as Hans Zimmer, um, and she's their featured violin soloist for several of their songs. So, Rusanda, I wanted to thank you, first of all, for taking the time that you would do this amidst such a busy schedule.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you and yeah, happy to be here.
So, when I was reading about you, your story, that you actually, your parents noticed that you had a love of music when you were singing a Japanese song when you were really little, and then you ended up starting to play the violin at 6. I wanted to ask you because I've always wondered for violinists who their life is the violin, that's their career, music. Is that when you were, does it ever reach a point where the love for it is diminished by how hard it gets with how much work that you have to do with it when it becomes something that you're earning your money from, that your career is beginning from? Is it difficult sometimes to just enjoy the instrument when you have all these other parts that have to go together with it?
Well, I think that the violin is a really, really difficult instrument, and it takes many
Yeah.
years to be able to even create any kind of decent sound and any kind of music. So the hardest process, in my opinion, is the beginning, the start. Obviously, if one has a certain musical talent and a good musical ear, and just generally like a talent for the instrument, maybe things just move a little faster. But still, to reach a certain level with violin, you need years and years of a lot of practice and crazy discipline, and someone behind you who's pushing you all the time. In my case, it was my mom. And so it's so difficult to actually really love it in the beginning. I don't know if that makes sense, but I loved music in general. I was a super musical child, whatever I would hear in the radio or in the TV, I would really reproduce easily. I would remember the melodies. It was so natural for me to just sing in tune, or like what you call a musical ear. So I'm sure that played a huge role in my development and how I progressed with the violin. But actually it took a lot of work, and not only just any kind of work with specialists, work with really amazing teachers and professionals who would give me the right structure
Hmm.
to practice. I think it's so important what kind of teacher you have in the beginning, and who's putting the basics of the instrument, and what is your technique, what is your structure of learning the instrument in the beginning. That basically will make your whole life easier, because afterwards you just have that, and then on top of that you can start adding your own personality and your own expression into the music. And I think that that's when the fun really starts. That's when you start to love what you're doing, because you can actually express yourself
Hmm.
through music. It's just like with a language. Imagine wanting to say something back and you just don't know how to express yourself. You just don't have the vocabulary, you don't have the words. And then it's very hard to say, "Oh, I love this language," because I don't know how to use it. Maybe I love the sound of it. I loved watching my mom. So my mom used to play the violin when she was young, and she
Hmm.
would take it out once in a while, and I would love watching her play the violin and listen to her. And I thought it's so beautiful the way she holds the instrument and how she looks like. So I love that aspect. But yeah, I think that the moment when I started really enjoying to play and to create music was so much later in my life, maybe when I was, I don't know, maybe when I was 16, 17. It took me like 10 years
Wow.
to get to that point. Yeah, and I think this is a big lesson when you think about learning an instrument and to become a professional. You have to have endurance, you have to have patience, and you have to stick to it and not give up for a long time until you actually get the result that you desire.
Did you ever want to give up?
Oh, of course, like there are moments, there are days when you just think, oh my God, this is so difficult. And not because, honestly, not necessarily even because of how hard the instrument is, but because how hard the industry is,
Hmm.
and because how difficult it is to actually make it in this industry as a professional. And if you think about it, how many violinists are there in the world? And we're kind of all fighting for the same spot. If you
Yeah.
don't understand that creating your own voice, and I think that the moment when I understood that, my whole life changed. I understood like, oh, I have to just find my own voice, my own way, my own road. And you not try to get the jobs that everybody else tries to get, but to kind of shape jobs onto my capacity and my abilities and what I can do and provide with music and as an artist. And then I always thought, if I do just whatever I want to do the best, then work will come to me,
Hmm.
and people will see that I am so invested in what I do. And yeah, so that kind of worked out, but it was much later in my life that I actually realized that. So it took a long road to get there, and a lot of disappointments, a lot of downfalls, but then also beautiful moments that just make you keep going, and don't let you give up. So
Was there a time that you were, really, because you were mentioning the disappointments, and I'm so glad you said that because I've always wondered, there's only a few violinists who really get out there and you know who they are. Like, there's tons of violinists, many who I'm sure are very good, and you go to an orchestra and you listen to them and you're like, oh, they're beautiful. But like, there's only a few that make it to like a soloist type of thing where they have a website, you know about them, they're used by different musicians. And I've I've always wondered, like, did you ever have moments when during those disappointments, you'd just take your violin out and you would play it just to kind of express how you were feeling, just make up a song of your own? Because, I mean, I only played the violin for like 5 years, so my violin was not great. But I remember every time I was keenly feeling an emotion, I'd love to go to my violin and just play something random that I would make up to try to express how I was feeling because it felt like I could get it out. Um, and so I've always wondered for professional violinists if you've ever experienced frustration or um, if you want a moment of solace on your own. Do you ever like just play your instrument for your own enjoyment, for your own um, way of getting out emotions you're feeling?
absolutely. I mean, It started, I was a child when I started playing the violin, and most of my free time, most of it was spent with my instrument. It became my partner, it became my friend, it became everything that I knew to you know to use as a form of expression. It was the strongest tool that I ever had. And spending so many hours and so many days and years of my life just trying to express something through the instrument, of course, it becomes an incredible tool for processing emotions as well. And obviously, when I was young, I was playing music, classical, just classical music, and I'm basically classical trained violinist. And there would be pieces that I would play where, of course, they were more melancholic or more
Yeah.
sad. And I remember sometimes, even though I would not have to practice those pieces, I felt like playing them, and that I would just play and really like pour my heart out into the piece. I would do that on stage as well. I really felt like on stage I could also just let out emotions. And very early on already, I was taking like a lot of risk in my performance. I didn't want to play safe. I was not the kind of musician that will, okay, I'm just gonna play really safe, like not too emotional. Obviously, when you put a lot of emotions into something, especially into playing an instrument like violin, you risk becoming too emotional, you risk the technique being less precise and all that.
Hmm.
But me, that didn't really matter for me. It just mattered for to have like to make a performance that somehow either makes me feel something, because if I feel something, I'll be able to project that to the audience. And music doesn't make sense to me if it doesn't do that. Like, I don't see the purpose of music if it's not made to touch people's hearts. It's the ultimate the ultimate goal of music is to make people connect, to make us interact on a level that is non-verbal. It's very magical when you think about that, how you
Yeah.
can play a melody and just trigger something in a person and trigger emotions, memories, all of that. So, of course, I did that as well. And since I started composing and writing, since I opened that door, because it took me also a long time to really dare to do that, to call myself a composer. And yeah, absolutely. Right now, that's all I do. That's basically everything that I do is that, is I have days where I would have certain state of mind, and I definitely dedicate certain time of my day to just writing, to just composing. And I really like shut my eyes. I even close the lights. I just like sometimes to have complete darkness in the room, and I just open a session and I start to play,
Hmm.
just see what comes out. And sometimes are ideas which I would not even like put them on the violin. That would be a piano melody, or that would be a singing melody, or it's really a very satisfying process to do it like that. It's almost like a therapy session, and then afterwards you feel like, okay, I let out some things that were, in there, that maybe
Yeah.
I don't know how to express through words. Sometimes it's to say something, it's so difficult, and for me, with music, it's just so much easier to express myself.
Yes, no, I agree. I think for me, it's always been writing and music, even just listening to music, or writing for me like a journaling or a story, and putting myself into the character and having the character express what I feel, because sometimes I can be better at writing the words and saying them to someone or whatever it is. And I always found the violin to be the most, at least in the time that I played, it was just the most um, emotional instrument. And it, because I guess as a kid I was more melancholy, and so it was just such a um when I would, when you use the E string and it would just be like the violin was crying on your behalf, you know what I mean? Um, but I did, you mentioned with the Austrian film that you composed with your husband and the fact that you are doing compositions, not just playing them. Do you have one in particular that you think really reflects who you are as a person and you put a ton of that into the composition?
Yeah, I think definitely one of the last tracks that I released, and whoever listens, you can just go to Apple Music or Spotify. It's easy to find everything there if you're interested. It's a violin piece called Fragments. It's also a piece that I composed together with my husband, Johannes Winkler, and it's not the first thing we've composed together, but it's one of the first thing that we actually said, okay, what do we really want to say with music together? How can we find the form of expression that really means something to us deeply? And to me, obviously, it would be a violin piece because I just feel so connected to my instrument. And Johannes was using mainly pianos and synthesizers because that's really his biggest strength and where he expresses himself amazingly. And I wanted to write a piece that challenges me extremely, that is very difficult technically, because I feel when you're going with your instrument to that edge of almost not being possible anymore, it's like almost it's painful. And if you reach that, it's just a type of satisfaction that I think that the listener can also feel.
Yeah.
So the performer gets to that extreme. So I wanted to challenge myself and write something that is really difficult to play and physical almost. Like sometimes the pain starts to kick in and
Yeah.
becomes almost like yeah, like a good kind of pain. I don't know. It's definitely I wanted to create very strong emotion and also something that flows, a piece that flows and connects us all. I also really like electronic music, and for me, electronic music has something that through the repetitive beat, through the repetitive sequences, has something that somehow makes us vibe together, and people start to get connected through the rhythm, through the motion of the music. And I wanted something that is just kind of flows and never interrupts. And this is Fragments for me. And Fragments is the beginning of, what we are doing now with the upcoming album, which is taking also elements of the Baroque era, which for me has all of that. We go back hundreds of years, and it's still so modern, and
Hmm.
the music still appeals to so many people. That's why maybe the Four Seasons of Vivaldi is such a beloved piece, and other pieces. Also, neoclassical composers kind of tend to go into that direction. It's just something that resonates with us. And I love that too. I love to play Baroque music, and it definitely is one of the elements that influences me as a composer.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's something that I really feel represents me as an artist and as a composer, and whatever we have created in the meantime, and will come out through the album is also really powerful and defines both of us, me and Johannes, very much as composers. So I'm looking forward to share that with the world.
Well, it sounds beautiful. I mean, when you said fragments, is it called that because the music itself sounds fragmented, or is it supposed to represent something like an idea or
Yes. Um, it kind of the idea behind Fragments is the notes are really fast. Everything is very fast, and just kind of if you don't pay attention, it's gone.
Mm.
also I feel like I feel very small in this world most of the time, and I feel like I'm just a little piece in a very big composition that
Mm.
is the world and everything that happens out there. But I still think that every little piece and every little molecule and everything, all the elements, everything has a big meaning. Um, and it life is always in the details, in the small things.
Mm.
That for me really makes sense. So whatever I do, I like to be very meticulous. I like to pay attention to details, to small little things. So that was kind of the idea behind fragments. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, I agree with you, just the fact that, and I think, I mean, it gives meaning too to the hard work you do that is small in the sense of behind the scenes and no one's really seeing it and there's not a big stage and lights and an audience, watching you all the time. Um, but you're creating beautiful music that you hope will touch and encourage people. Do you um prefer the performing aspect of music, or do you much prefer like actually creating it and kind of creating this music world and working on it by yourself or with your husband as opposed to performing it for people?
I think both have such a very strong emotional aspect for me. To play in front of an audience, it's magical. To feel the energy, to connect with the people in the moment. I love that. I'm a stage person. The feeling on stage is uncomparable. But also working in the studio and composing and just being by myself and reflecting on my own emotions and what I want to express is very powerful. And I think, like every person needs time for themselves, time to reflect, time to learn new things. That for me is composing and creating music. It's
Mm.
something that is really good for my soul, and I feel very fulfilled by doing that. And I think that the biggest emotions that I have, and I've experienced it, is when I play my own music in front of the audience. It's combining both of these worlds, um, and that is a really incredible and uplifting feeling, not because of how it makes me feel to play my music for others, but knowing that I can do that and that moment just exists then, and it's just, it will be gone like in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Just makes it so special that it only happens in that moment. Because when you record something and it's there forever, and it's beautiful as well, but just to know that something only exists there and in that moment makes it unique. So that's why I think going to concerts and experiencing music live is so important, and it's a different kind of experience completely than listening to a recording or yeah,
No, you're
but
right. It's true, because that you have unique memories and moments that you remember with the concert. Whereas if you're listening to the soundtrack, you've listened to it over and over again, and then it just becomes not because and not to say that the music loses its beauty, but it becomes more in the background, because you're playing it while you're working or whatever, as opposed to the concert. That's all there is just the music.
I
There
mean, it's
isn't
just
any other
like a mem
distraction.
it's like when you live something and you are experiencing something and you take a photo of it. So when you look back, you see you have the photo, you look at the photo, but that moment when you were experiencing it,
Yes.
that's the real thing. So that's very, very special.
What's something in your life that you experienced that you loved in the moment and you remember fondly, but obviously the memories are not as strong as the experience in the moment, but is there an experience that really impacted you, or you have very vivid memories of it being just very um, enjoyable, or it changed you or impacted you in some way?
Wow, there have been so many of these kind of moments. It's hard to really choose from since I was a child. I think I've had I've had really special moments performing. But there was one particular moment that if I look back now, like I'm trying to select through my head, what was a really memorable one. And I think I was really young. I think I was about 12 or 13. And I had a performance that didn't feel like performing. I don't know how to explain it. Before that, obviously, I was in the beginning where the instrument is very challenging and you always have to take care and be super focused and don't let go and just stay focused until the end so you don't make any mistakes. And this is
Hmm.
kind of all you can think of
Yeah.
for so long. And I remember there was that one moment that I just played.
Hmm.
I didn't think of how is this passage gonna go? Am I gonna nail this double stops? Like I just remember that felt almost like levitating. So from that moment on, I think that why I became even more hardworking and I started practicing even more because I understood, wow, if I get to the point where I'm so in control of the technical aspect, where I'm so prepared for the performance, I can actually let go and have this feeling. And it's almost like a drug, it's like something you want to relieve again, and you're willing to do a lot for that. And I was practicing like 10, 12, 14 hours a day until my fingers were bleeding,
Oh,
just
wow.
able to have that that freedom on stage. And it's something that really stayed with me. I know that if I'm prepared, I can deliver a much more enjoyable performance for myself as well. So not just for the audience, and it just makes more sense.
Do you think you feel the most free as a person when you're playing music?
As a person,
Yeah.
just hmm,
Like, you know how, like, for
when
me, I would say, like,
I play, I don't think that when I play music, I'm the most free. But if I definitely doing something with music, I've experienced as well moments where I'm scoring to picture and I see a picture and I hear the music in my head and then I make the music and then I feel as well extremely free because I can create something that is in my head that resonates with me and then fits to the picture, and I feel extremely free by doing that. I don't need necessarily immediate recognition or an applause. Yeah, I feel like I definitely managed to create various directions of expressing through music, where I have more or less the same feeling.
hmm,
So I'm very grateful for that. It definitely took a long time to get there. But right now I feel very comfortable in expressing myself as well through composing.
yeah. Do you, when you're not doing music, do you also use music as a means of rest for you personally, or are there other things like hobbies you have or something restful that you can kind of rest your body and your mind, or do you find that music also is the same, that that gives you the rest you need?
I think music is it can be a trigger for so many different kind of states of mind. I love to listen to South American music, for example, that is very rhythmical and very uplifting. And I've done that since I was really, really young. My love for Latin American music started when I was 12 and 13. So I started dancing. I did a lot of that. So for me, when I'm home, when I'm, cooking, relaxing, there's gonna be salsa running in the background, or any kind of South American music. I just love that. It makes me happy, joyful, and relaxed. I do take a lot of time daily to listen to new artists. I like to listen to various music. I like to be surprised as well. This is one positive aspect about the algorithm of the digital platforms, that it kind of throws music at you that you don't know. So
Yeah.
I really like that. I really like, and then it also tells me about what I like, because I would be skipping songs after 2 seconds, and then sometimes I would stay. And I really like that. That's not something I would normally listen to, but that really is nice. So then I would research more about the artist. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing to do. And I love to change my emotions by listening to music. I don't necessarily, let's say, okay, when I read, I cannot listen to music. When I drive, I really don't like to listen to music because it's too distracting to me. I go into an analytical mode. I like if I listen, like, oh, okay, okay, and then I start to, I don't know, like I go too much with it that I cannot focus on the other thing that I'm supposed to do. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, cooking is easy, but driving, I want to focus. And when I read, also when I'm reading sentences that I want to process well, music would be distracting.
Right.
Yeah. And for sleeping or relaxing, usually it would be very minimalistic ambient music that barely has, too much harmonic uh, changes. And it would be more like sound design and just very, 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 very minimalistic, because that would let my brain kind of relax and not think about structures and it's maybe that's a musical brain that works a little bit different.
I think that's so interesting though. I guess that's how you can tell when someone um really enjoys music, but then when someone really loves it, it's like their passion, then you're listening very deeply to the music and you're analyzing it like you said because you love it so much and so you think about it and you're wondering how could this be better or how could this get any worse. I was gonna ask you and you said that you skipped some songs. Is there some type of genre of music that you just do not connect with at all that is very difficult to listen to?
Hmm. Um, well, yeah, there are some things that I don't necessarily enjoy listening to, and it's just not my cup of tea. There is a genre of music here in Austria, Germany, it's called Schlager, and it's kind of, you know, I don't know, like I would not compare it to country music, because I kind of like country music. It's more authentic, does have like a little bit more vibe, but it's just a very specific style of music that doesn't really resonate with me. Um, and maybe like a really heavy, heavy metal or death metal or something like that is, I get very anxious very fast. It really kind of makes me too nervous. And generally, I like to be very calm. I'm a very calm person. I don't like to raise my voice. I don't like to be loud. I like the chill vibe. I like to be calm. So that's why maybe that type of music doesn't really resonate with me. Um, but the music that I would skip would just be that kind of like a meh music, something that is just next. It doesn't really give me anything. And not because the music is maybe not good, but just because that's my own kind of preference, my own feeling of what I need, what I need in my life. And everybody's different. So I try really not to judge. I can judge like a bad mix, or I can judge, a bad maybe like a bad performance, but I wouldn't judge musical styles because music is there for everybody, and um, there is something for everybody. So that's why I don't like to kind of diminish certain styles of music.
Yeah, no, that's true. But you are just talking about personally. So I think everyone has songs that they personally or genres that they don't enjoy, but other people do. Um, I was gonna ask you, is there an emotion you find easier to express in music than in human interaction with people?
For me, maybe weakness
Hmm.
is something that I don't really like to openly interact about. Being really sad and weak and depressed and very down.
You mean
I
like
don't.
vulnerable, maybe?
Oh, no, I think vulnerability is okay. I think that's a good thing to show when you're vulnerable, when you are emotional, it's fine. But there are some pieces of music that are extremely nostalgic and very exaggerated in the way of emotions, and very, very intense in terms of like um deep, deep sadness. And I love to play those kind of pieces. But when I am like that, I don't really like to show it. So maybe not to the world, only in my safe space. But so with the world, I feel very comfortable playing that kind of music, like extreme, extreme, intense, deep, sad kind of music. But I don't think that would be easy for me to do, to show my own kind of emotions in that direction.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think too it's hard to I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like it's hard to express sorrow without it being misunderstood in some way. Um, like just being sad in a healthy way, I think is hard to express and for people to understand because there's so many spectrums of sadness, and I think it's so easy to just quickly judge what kind of sadness people are experiencing, and then there's not that openness of being able to express, what kind of sad. Is this grief? Is this depression? Is this, just having a hard day kind of thing? Um, do you, is there a time in your life that you remember being especially hard that you see as something that helped you grow as a person?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time in my life where I was experiencing a very difficult like transition to from being a student and just being in this kind of safe world of being a student and transitioning to being a professional musician, and to actually find work um, and find my place and find my own voice. Um, and I had several disappointments in that time. I was doing a lot of competitions
Hmm.
in that time of my life. And competitions can be really tough because often not the best. let's say, musical performer wins or advances in a competition, but more like the really like super technical musicians who play like super flawlessly. And uh,
Mm.
and then it's very, also judging music, it's such a personal thing to do. And so I had some disappointments there where, of course, a lot of work was involved and a lot of expectation was involved, and that was not really, didn't go how I was expecting.
Mm.
And to get out of there mentally and to say, okay, that I'm not going to do that anymore. That doesn't make me happy, doesn't bring me anywhere. I need to find another way to make music and to be heard and to be seen. And it just took, some really great advice from people who were in the industry already. It took some bravery and some overcoming fears, mostly fear of judgment. I think
Mm.
that's what we deal with a lot in the music industry. And kind of, go for it. And yeah, that's when probably my life really changed because I said, okay, I don't care anymore. For me, making music is not about that. I just want to make music. I want to do what I want to do. I want to be able to enjoy making music instead of just fearing that I'm going to be criticized and I'm not going to be good enough for this or for that. um, yeah, and that was hard, but it was the greatest lesson um, for me for the future.
Yeah, I can relate to that in the sense of, I think for podcasting, I don't know if you find this similar for music, but social media is people can be very cruel and harsh, um, about, whatever it is, whether it's your voice, whether it's your appearance, whether it's your playing, whatever. And at first, I thought I would be very resilient to that. I didn't think it would bother me as much as it did. And then at first, I was really bothered. I was surprisingly like, it made me doubt, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. Maybe I don't actually care about this enough. Maybe I'm not the right person. But I would always go back to, but I love this. I love talking to people. I love being able to interact with them. Do I give that up just because a few people are upset and think that I should be prettier or should be more sophisticated or should ask questions in a different way? And um, it always brought me back to, and something my husband always reminded me was like, but if you love it and you do your best to articulate that love for other people, that's what matters. It doesn't really matter how many people are going to like it. It's just what matters is why you're doing it. And I don't know
Absolutely.
for you, for music is, and for social media, I wonder for you is because there's so many musicians on social media, right? And like, I only found out about you, and maybe this proves shows my ignorance about the music world, but I found out about you for going for a concert and seeing you perform and was just blown away by how beautiful and how much I felt when you played. Um, but there's just so many people out there. It's so hard to get out there at all. And so, how do you kind of wrestle with that tension of like, okay, marketing, people need to know who I am, know what I'm doing, but at the same time, just being like, but I love this and I don't want to conform. I want to do what I love, but the tension that comes from needing publicity to also just doing what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that I have a fairly healthy relationship to social media, and um, somehow it didn't I had moments, of course, when things bothered me because I was like and already writing the comment back and then erasing it and saying, No, it's
Yeah.
not worth it. And I think that all of us had that, and we don't have to lie about this. We can speak openly. I'm telling you one thing that I am 100% certain of, and I can bet it's this way. The real professionals, the people who actually do something, the people who are actually working and doing something like that, would never take the time to write mean comments. We don't have the time. We
Yeah.
just don't we don't have the time to do this kind of things. So for me, if I see a mean comment, if I see someone who's clearly trying to make you feel bad about something that they will never dare to do, it's somewhere like, they just want to hurt you, and they're trying their best to do that. They're trying to make your day miserable. And in that moment, I'm thinking, oh, I actually feel sorry for them, number one, because nobody should be that miserable to take time to sit on your page. I mean, nobody is forcing you to be there. Just switch.
Yeah.
I'm not forcing you. I'm not making you watch my content. Just change the website. It's so easy. So I feel sorry for them, and then I don't like maybe the really bad comments. I erase them because I don't want to have hate publicly on my page. But some of them where people just express their opinion a bit, I let it there. I let it be because I think that it's okay. They have that's their opinion. It's a public space. They can think like that.
Yeah.
And but then I'm looking like how many beautiful messages are there, how many messages of encouragement, of people loving what I do, um, people writing me that my music made their day better, that, all these amazing things that I have never thought I would be able to reach, before social media, before YouTube and all of that. We didn't have that. And now to be able to reach people around the world and have them feel such beautiful emotions by listening or by watching a video, I think that's worth everything. It's worth it. And yeah, no, don't pay attention to the haters and let them be and feel sorry for them. And then that's it, and just keep going. It's actually really easy when we don't put too much importance to these kind of things. Go your own way,
Yeah.
focus on what you really want to achieve. You're not going to focus on these kind of people. You're going to focus on the ones that give you a positive feedback, and that's what you want to generate. Um, and for me, it's all like that about music. Obviously, I'm I'm not gonna please everybody. I'm not gonna be perfect for everybody. I'm not gonna be the most beautiful or whatever, It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, actually. I like to express myself and I put it out there, and I think that's already brave. And it took me a long time to achieve this kind of, feeling of trusting myself and trusting my taste and trusting what I feel to share,
Yeah.
that someone with a comment is not going to take that away from me.
Yeah. That's true. You know, what is there still an area about yourself or your music that you feel insecure about? Even something, maybe you've had since you were a kid and you are growing in it and growing in confidence or growing in seeing yourself rightly, but there's still something that you find hard or an insecurity you still have that you find yourself growing in as you grow older.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very critical with myself, extremely. So most of the time, I don't like anything that I do. So I just do something and like, and then I put it away. And usually I come back to it later when I can detach myself from what I just did. I think immediately I'm extremely critical. Immediately. If I do something, then immediately I listen to it back or I watch it back. I'm like, I hate this. And
Hmm.
if I give myself some time, almost as if I am looking at somebody else doing something, it's like not me anymore. It's, Rusanta from a week ago. So that's not me anymore. So, or me from a year ago, and then I'm like, okay, this is pretty good, that I will never be, I feel like I will never be fully 100% happy what I do, and I'm very, very critical. But that's part of it. I think that's part of wanting to achieve something good, something of high quality. If you're not strict to yourself, if you're not critical, you can be your biggest critic, But then also, if you trust somebody else's opinion and you search for opinion and like, what do you think about it? And they say, wow, that's really great. Then it's also okay to accept that and to listen, to say, okay, I trust that person. And then I have to also trust that what I do is good and learn to love even the mistakes. Sometimes the mistakes are the ones that make music also be alive. And like a lot of the music is overproduced, is very, very like everything is tuned in, everything is perfect, everything is not, and then there's no feeling. So
Hmm.
um, it's finding that balance between really high quality performance and the human aspect that is, never perfect.
I so agree with that. I think, and this is, I loved the Hans Zimmer concert. My husband was, it had been a dream of his, so he was over the moon, and his mouth was wide open most of the time. But I, I loved the softer pieces that would come because I have always enjoyed, and my husband and I have been able to attend some concerts where it was just like 100 people and you're encircled. And then the violinist and the pianist came out. There was one in particular we went to, I think, a year or two ago, and it was just them playing with just a dim spotlight on them, and everyone was just sitting quietly listening to them. And there wasn't fancy transitions or there were no lights, there was nothing um, sensational about it, but it was so moving and you would cry. You'd find yourself crying in the dark, as you're listening to this music because it was just so intimate and heartfelt and everyone could participate in it at the same time. And so I found that I really end up enjoying those more intimate settings a lot
Mm,
more because you have, like you were saying, like this collective experience and it's just it's like a music is playing, but it's so personalized to you because it's so quiet at the same time, you know?
mm. Also, I feel there is a really big difference between those hyper amplified concert and the acoustic concert. There's just the way the sound flows through the room directly from the instrument to your ears,
Yeah.
um, not without any kind of technology in between. And also you being very close to the artist. It definitely, even for me, to play these kind of intimate small concerts feels sometimes more intense than sometimes in an arena when the stage is so big and the audience is so far away. And I'm also short-sighted, so when I look at I look at the audience, I kind of just see like little dots, and 20,000 people. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like real anymore.
Hmm.
Of course, I know how to connect to these big audiences as well. I learned how to do that. But I remember the first concerts, it felt like surreal to be in front of so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do also. I am a fan of acoustic concerts. I'm a fan of the direct sound of an instrument. There's something that gives me also like real goosebumps. Um, Sometimes when I'm backstage and one of the singers warms up and I hear the voice directly there next to me, I'm like, oh my God, that's so powerful, so intense without any kind of microphone, with nothing else. So yeah, and obviously I grew up like that. Classical music is never amplified. We always work with natural acoustics and with small audiences, So yeah,
Do you like chanting? Like Gregorian, I mean Gregorian chants are like the more
uh,
but even just like chanting where there is no music, it's like the person is creating the music with their voice
yeah,
by
absolutely.
themselves. It's so
I love,
beautiful.
I love this kind of old, ancient songs, whether is Gregorian or Byzantine. Um, uh, all these old kind of choirs, church choirs. I come from Moldova. I grew up in Romania, so we have Orthodox choirs that are extremely powerful, and I'm sure everybody knows the Bulgarian female choirs, the Bulgarian voices, and yeah, I love that. I love Armenian, Georgian choir.
Yes, it's
That is
beautiful.
fascinating. It's fascinating. I actually um, am studying a lot of this music right now for future project. Yeah, so
Yes, and I love the Armenian duduk. It's beautiful. I
yeah,
think there was a song I remember when I was studying the Armenian genocide in high school, and I really wanted to listen to Armenian music to kind of understand the culture a little bit if I could, because I couldn't visit it. Um, and I remember there was one, I don't remember his name, but it was a musician who played a song that they've taken the one that I love, and it was just the duduk. And oh my gosh, I mean, I was just like, it was over, and my heart was like, every person I had ever lost, whether it be in death or in friendship, whatever it was like it was there. It was expressed so beautifully. And I think, like you said, that just the power of music it's very powerful. I think sometimes, yeah, more powerful than words, what you can say, because you can penetrate people's hearts so deeply, and you have such a responsibility as a musician, which is so cool.
yeah, absolutely. And each instrument kind of touches a different part of your heart, and that's why the duduk is so emotional, and the violin is different, and an oboe would be different, a cello will be different, and the voice of a human person will be different. Is That's why making music is also fascinating. Then you've got percussion and rhythms, and also different layer of how um, how you can reach people with instruments. And that's why for me the life and the world as a composer has opened so much more possibility of connecting with people and connecting with emotions than just through my violin.
Yeah. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, so I just want to ask you one more question. Is there a song that you haven't necessarily written, but you just have heard or have played several times growing up or whatever it was that you think expresses who you are as a person? So if someone was to listen to it, they'd be like, oh, that reminds me of Rusanda. Like, do you have something like that?
I never thought about anything like that. I don't, I genuinely don't know. I don't, I think if it would have to be something like a symphony with many parts because I am not just, in one way. I'm a very, I would say I'm not an easy person, I at least acknowledge that. I have many facets and many different kind of moods and different states of mind. And so it would be a very various piece with complex, with different movements, where you have the first movement, which is more like ta-da, ta-da. I'm a little bit over dramatic sometimes, and then very calm, and then very energetic, and then all of it in one. I don't know. Maybe your listeners can give us some options, some ideas of who I could be in a musical composition or in a song. I'm excited to hear.
I I think you're just describing what it's like to be human, especially what it's like to be an artist, right? Very all these different aspects, like a poem. There's just no way to have it all be one thing.
Mm, yeah, yeah, I think it's very normal, and we we should try to embrace all the emotions that we have within. I think the maybe the biggest mistake we can do is to not allow ourselves to feel and to kind of block emotions. And it's not so easy for everybody to do that, but I always encourage it. Just let it out and be open and honest with yourself and process what's happening within you. And that takes courage, of course, and it takes time, but
Yeah.
it can only lead to something positive, to you getting to know yourself better, to understand more about yourself and what you need in life, and to be happy. And that is everyone's ultimate goal. We all want to be happy and satisfied and have um, a good time while we are in this life, while we are here.
You think you've reached happy with what you do?
I, I am really a very happy person because I get to do what I love. I have amazing people around me. I have incredible uh, opportunities that come to me in my life. Um, I consider myself a very fortunate and happy person. Yeah, in that aspect, definitely. And because I'm also happy because I know that I can do so much more. So I'm happy even for the future. I'm always looking forward to do more, to try new things. But as always, life brings different kind of emotions. So just being happy all the time is also not necessarily um, important. There are days and days where I am not. But let's say it's temporary. As long as it's temporary, it's fine.
Yeah, I agree. No emotion is really great if it lasts forever.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Little
it was such it
happiness is.
was that's true. That's true. But even happiness, it's different than joy, right? Where like joy seems to be something where it's more forever, whereas happiness is in a static state. I don't know if I'd always want to feel that way, Because then how could I resonate with people if they were sad or whatever? Because I'd always be happy.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was such a gift getting to know you, and your music is beautiful. And I thank you so much for the courage you have to play it and to create music that you love and are passionate about. And I really hope that I get to see this film, but I'm definitely going to look up the soundtrack on Spotify and listen to it.
Well, I will let you know definitely, and I will let all uh, everybody know through my socials. And I usually share everything about my work. So whoever wants to stay in touch, just check out my Instagram or my Facebook, my pages where usually all the updates to my work are being posted. And yeah, looking forward to connect with more people through your podcast as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
All right, bye.
Bye.